Last week we covered special teams. This week we're going to cover the DB room, which is kind of there's some things to discuss. There's some positions to be earned out there with the DB rooms. But Zach, I'll let you kick it off. The corners. I mean, who's going to be all on the islands? Out there on the right and left side of the field.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say that Jarrett Bernard-Converse is definitely going to be one of those guys that's a starter. Now the question is, who's going to be the number 2 guy? Do you choose somebody like Sevyn Banks, who transferred in from Ohio State, was a former freshman All-American, has dealt with some injury, lost his starting position at Ohio State, and therefore transferred over to LSU. But the talent is definitely there, and he is really big on draft boards. Yeah. So the talent level is there. Or do you go after a guy like Mekhi Garner, who's had a really good offseason and has really impressed the staff? Yeah. I think Jarrett Bernard-Converse has locked down one of the corner positions, one of the island spots. Yeah. I think that second position is going to be between Sevyn Banks and Mekhi Garner. So we'll see, Reagan.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say Jarrett Bernard-Converse, I think is a lock on one side. I mean, Big 12, first team Big 12 defensive player, like 3 or 4 year starter already. I mean, tons of experience, tons of talent. Like, he's going to be your solid guy out there. Yeah. And of course, like you said, Mekhi Garner and Sevyn are probably going to be the guys playing for the outside. I mean, honestly, I think it goes, into the fall. I think it goes into like the games. Who's going to go out there and perform the best. Ultimately, I think it's going to be Sevyn. I mean, no knock on Mekhi whatsoever. I mean, he did some great things at Louisiana Lafayette. And was a great player, but I think Sevyn has a little bit more experience and talent to pair with Jarrett Bernard on the other side. I think ultimately Sevyn is going to be the guy. And just based on what we saw in the spring game, there were some struggles for Mekhi, but, he can grow, he can learn and develop. He may prove us wrong. We hope he does. But, I'm going to take Jarrett Bernard, and I'm going to take Sevyn on the wings. Who are we going to take next? A nickel?
Yeah, we can go with nickel.
Nickel. Zach, give me your who's going to be your nickel?
I think
your nickel.
Yeah. Nickelback.
Nickel.
I think it's going to be Greg Brooks with Sage Ryan close behind. I still really like Sage Ryan and his ability. He definitely hasn't reached his ceiling yet. I think he's dealt with some injury. In the time that he's been at LSU, and he wears number 15, so I love it. I don't know if y'all know this, but I love the number 15.
I thought wait, no. Sage Ryan wears 15.
That's what I'm saying. Sage Ryan wears 15.
Oh, I thought you were saying Greg Brooks. I thought you were saying Greg Brooks.
No, I mean, I think it's going to be Greg Brooks and Sage Ryan. I think those guys are going to kind of alternate at that position. Yeah, I think Greg Brooks ultimately gets the nod because of the experience there. I mean, he's been a full-time starter at Arkansas. He has the SEC experience. Yeah. Sage has, like we said, dealt with injury a lot. So maybe next year ends up being his money year for him after Greg Brooks is gone. So I'm really looking forward to that position because, I mean, that's obviously a key position. I mean, it's one of the biggest positions on the field nowadays in college football. Yeah. And so I think it's going to be mainly those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, got to agree again. People have been so high on Greg Brooks. Mm-hmm. We spoke with Austin Louis, your buddy from college who is an Arkansas fan. We got his take on Greg Brooks and Joe Fouché, and he said Greg Brooks is a guy he has not tapped his ceiling yet. He hadn't tapped his full potential. And supposedly some of that potential is being seen. I mean, during spring ball, it was like every day we were hearing Greg Brooks was getting an interception.
I mean, he was getting it
all the time.
There was like a streak for a while where he was getting an interception
all the time. And one party is like, oh shoot, Greg Brooks is the guy, or is it, oh shoot, our quarterback's thing, right? That's your thought in spring ball. Like, which is it? You know, are we? Do we have terrible quarterbacks, or is Greg Brooks that dude?
Yeah.
You know, we hope he's that dude. I mean, they continue to rave about him, and you know, I saw on a few things that he may be one of the like guys to look out for, who's kind of flying under the radar this coming year in the SEC. Like I fully expect him to be like Greg Brooks to be like an all second team defense for the SEC, maybe first. You know, if he takes a step from where he was at Arkansas.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Greg Brooks is the starter. I will say he's the starter. Obviously, Sage Ryan will get plenty of time. I think he'll play a lot this year. I don't think he'll be the starter, but I mean, you gotta give guys some rest, some breaks. You know, they switch out packages and whatnot. Like Sage is gonna see the field. I mean, he's a 5-star recruit right there out of Lafayette Christian. Like he's going to play a bunch.
Well, and speaking of recruits, you know, you can't forget Jordan Allen. I mean, Jordan Allen is also you know, going to probably play that position some, and so you know, maybe probably won't get a whole lot of experience.
LCA guy.
Yeah,
another LCA guy.
A guy who maybe probably won't get a whole lot of experience this year, but definitely will get some reps. And hopefully, you know, they stay injury free there. But you know, if you need him, he's there. If a really talented freshman in Jordan Allen, if you need to use him in that position, if you lose Greg Brooks to injury, you know, God forbid that to happen. But,
yeah, that's two guys there's two guys I'm really looking forward to. Like they're coming in their freshman year. You know, that may not see the field as much, but I'm like excited for their future because they've been so vocal. Is Jordan Allen and LaTerrence Welch?
Yep.
Like they have been very vocal. Like they're Louisiana, you know, do or die. Like they're there to play for LSU and nobody else. Like those are two guys. Like you're probably going to stay. Like you won't see those two guys transfer. So I'm super excited. You know, unless something plays out to where they need to, but they just don't seem like the type.
Yeah,
like they're here and they're committed to it. I mean, LaTerrence Welch stayed committed to LSU through the coaching change. So I'm excited about those two guys in the future. But yeah, Greg Brooks, I think it's his year for the nickel spot. I guess next we got to talk about the two safeties. Who's going to be the two safeties? There's some options, dude. I mean, Todd Harris is coming back for his 15th season at LSU. So there's a little bit of experience there. You know, of course, man, bless Todd Harris. You know, it's hard. I mean, had some injuries, man. I mean, 2019, it thought, you know, he was going to be the guy out there, and then tore his ACL. Was it 2019? He tore his ACL
in the Texas game.
Texas game, yeah. And of course, then ended up being, you know, Grant and Jacoby Stevens, correct? And you know, he's going to be there, but also Major Burns, Joe Fouché, and probably your top guy, Jay Ward. Yeah. So you got four guys that legitimately could be there, you know, and could play. Derek Davis was a 5-star safety who's on your team as well. Yeah. Is going to be, you know, second year this year.
Jordan Tolles, Matthew Wayne.
Jordan Tolles. So, like, there's safety. There's an abundance of riches there.
You're 4 deep at free safety and 4 deep at strong safety.
Yeah, like you got multiple options. So, you know, I think we may see several people play, and it's good to have some depth there. But I guess, obviously the question, who's your starters?
Oh, well, I think Jay Ward is pretty much a lock at free safety. And then at the other safety position, I think it is going to be a battle between Major Burns and Joe Fouché. Major Burns is another guy that has battled injury. We know he transferred in from Georgia last season.
Baton Rouge kid.
He was a Baton Rouge kid. He was a starter for part of the season last year before going down to injury. Yeah. How much has that affected him? How much has he been able to work back and get back to, you know, 100% this offseason? But if he's not a go, you've got Joe Fouché, another Arkansas transfer, another starter at Arkansas that has a ton of experience. So LSU, as you said, Reagan, they are definitely not lacking experience, talent, or depth at the safety position, at both of those safety positions.
Right.
And as some people have mentioned, I really think that the secondary is kind of a position group that's been slept on a little bit.
Yeah, they're definitely underrated.
Now, I mean, underrated. I think it's a position. I think you can only go up after the last 2 seasons. You can only go up. You went from a historically bad season, not a great season last year.
I mean, injury prone last year.
You dealt with so many injuries. You know, and there's some guys that we haven't mentioned, you know, like in the secondary as well, like Demarius McGee and Radar's been there a long time. You got a freshman in Jalen Davis Robinson as well, LaTerrence Welch. I mean, all those guys. There's a lot of names and a lot of talent there in the secondary. I think the biggest question is, can you put it all together? You know, who's the best, the best 4, the best 5 that you can put on the field and can work cohesively as a unit to lock down the passing attack. That's going to be the biggest question. And I honestly, as I said, I don't think I think you can only go up from the last 2 seasons. I think we'll see an improvement, LSU fans, no matter what.
Look, here's my thought when it comes to the DB room past 2 seasons. Well, let me mention this season. This season, first. This season, I think you're going to have a unified group, regardless of who plays out there. It's going to be a unified group.
Yeah.
And, you know, Brian Kelly came in and, you know, it was understood that there was going to be a safeties coach and there was going to be a DBs coach.
Yeah.
It was, you know, there wasn't going to be one, you know, like it was with Corey Raymond. See, that was a problem the last 2 years. You know, we dealt with the whole Bill Bush being safety, Corey Raymond being DB. Corey Raymond didn't really like that. He wanted them together. There was that going on. And let's be honest, Derek Stingley was having injuries. Elias Ricks was kind of upset that, you know, he wasn't getting the NIL attention that he needed wanted. Yeah, let me rephrase that. We were injury. So you had coaching issues. I mean, Bo Pelini was your defensive coordinator. And then last year, you know, I give all the respect in the world to Durante Jones because he made the defense better. But he's a first-year coordinator. You had
his hands were tied the first 6 games.
Correct. Hands were tied the first 6 games. Then all of a sudden, Ed Orgeron's letting him do what he wants to do at the defense, and it looks better. That one is coaching. And then, of course, the Corey Raymond thing with him and Bill Bush in the DB safeties room. So coaching was a problem. Injuries were a problem. Todd Harris, Major Burns, Derek Stingley. And then there was some toxicity within the locker room.
And the injuries made depth a problem.
So injuries made depth. Like, all of these things came together. Like, the DB room got hit hard.
Yeah.
Coaching, players, injuries, like all of it. Like, it was bad. And it's been really bad the last 2 years because of those things. This year, it's understood. You know, Brian Kelly, he ran a safety coach and a DB coach like for a very long time with his coaching staffs. So it was understood like that was going to happen. There's accountability going on. There's a new staff. There's a new feel. We've brought in some transfers. Like, it's going to be pulled together. Yeah. Like, it is not going to be the way it has been the past 2 years. And
I think there'll definitely be struggles because it is a completely new group. I mean, outside of Jay Ward, it is a completely new overhaul. Yeah. So there's going to be struggles.
Correct. But you're not going to see just absolutely stupid blown plays.
Yeah.
Like completely inexcusable plays. You will have unexcusable plays. I mean, that's just, they're human, right?
Yeah.
But like, it happened often.
Yeah.
And it was a consistent problem, right?
A scheming issue, a coaching issue, player issue.
Correct. So, I mean, I do not see any way, shape, or form that the DB room is near as bad as it has been in the past. And I think the DB room may be like we said, most underrated room in this team. I mean, Jay Ward is going to be a dude.
Yeah.
Like Greg Brooks, from what we saw in the spring, things people were saying, could very well be a dude. We know Jarek Bernard-Converse is a dude. Does Micaiah Garner, does Sevyn Banks step up, right? Sage Ryan, Joe Fouché, like Major Burns, does he come off of injury? Like, there's 2 spots that are kind of in question.
Yeah.
Who's going to be on the other side of
Jarek?
of Jarrett, and who's going to be the other safety other than Jay Ward. But there's depth there. There's talent there. So, honestly, if one guy if Joe Fouché steps up and he's that guy, and he plays physical, kind of like a Jamal Adams type of player, like if you get that out of him, and then let's say –
or just 80% of that.
Right, 80% of it. If you get Sevyn Banks to do what he did his freshman year, now that he's healthy, new location, ready to roll, like your DBs could be very good. It could be very good.
The thing about this secondary, Reagan, is there is a lot of potential for them to hold that DBU moniker.
Yeah.
But there's also, on the flip side, there's a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. There's a lot of question marks.
For sure.
Which is, I think, the biggest hurdle that this coaching staff is going to have to overcome.
Yeah.
And I feel confident because Robert Steeples and Kerry Cooks have been doing a fantastic job on the recruiting front. And, I mean, the strength and conditioning staff has been doing a fantastic job with them. So when you look at that group, you can't just look at the players themselves and the coaches themselves. You have to look at the whole. And the whole has become drastically better.
Yeah.
And so I have to agree with you. I think that this group will be drastically better. Now, the question is, will they be elite? Will they be SEC great?
I don't think they'll be like number one in the SEC. Like
no.
Like I don't expect
they could be anywhere from a top 3 secondary to a middle of the row lower tier. I mean, that's how big this of a question it is.
But still, even if they are middle of the road, that's better.
Yeah.
Like we were horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, worst it's literally
worst it's
ever been. Statistically in Bo Pelini's year. I mean, that was just awful. And I mean, that's why you got an overhaul of change.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Brian Kelly's here. By far, bar none. Like, I don't care if their play is subpar. They're going to be unified, and it's going to be a better group.
Yeah.
Like, I agree. I just from a coaching standpoint, a player's standpoint, it's going to be more unified and together, and stupid stuff is not going to happen as often because Brian Kelly won't put up with it.
Yeah.